Viewership for The Acolyte's finale is finally here, and it shows that this show was an utter disaster and that people abandoned this show en masse, even the small portion that even checked it out to begin with. That is how bad this show did, and it explains just why Leslye Headland was begging viewers to try and convince Lucasfilm to greenlight a second season. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com this morning. And data from Nielsen reveals that The Acolyte's finale viewership was 41% worse than Ahsoka's finale and over 50% less than Andor's finale. Absolute disaster. This is indeed where it clocked in at 355 million minutes watched when it debuted on July 16th. You can see that right there. It placed 10th on Nielsen's originals chart behind The Boys, Cobra Kai, Love Island, Vikings Valhalla, The Bear, Homicide, Los Angeles, Evil, Receiver, and Bridgerton. So did not do well at all. And you have to remember that when Nielsen does this, they're not just looking at the 8th episode, the finale episode. They're actually looking at the entire show. So obviously with the 8th episode coming out, that means people were indeed binge watching this show, or there at least were people likely to binge watch this show, meaning they're watching all 8 episodes in kind of one go within the same week. So that is just how bad this show, this episode did, this show was, is that it actually had a decline from when it premiered, because it premiered with 488 million minutes watched. 2-episode premiere, 488 million minutes watched. And now we're looking at the season finale only coming in at 335 million minutes watched. That is an over 30% decline between the premiere and the finale. That is absolutely terrible. It means there was no word of mouth. People were not talking about this in a positive manner. People were not convincing people to watch this show. In fact, the opposite seems to happen. People were told to stay away. They stayed away, and people abandoned the show and quit watching it. So utter disaster for this show. So I do want to point out that this idea that the show did indeed abandon viewers, I think we do have some other data points that show this. If you look to the show's 3rd week, when the 4th episode titled Day debuted, you will see that it is not on Nielsen's chart, and it was less than 298 million minutes watched, because that was what the 10th ranked King of Collectibles, The Golden Touch, was at. So clearly we were already seeing declining viewership just on an episode by episode basis. By the time of the show's 4th episode, the 3rd week that it was out, it was no longer on Nielsen's charts, indicating to me that the show was indeed losing viewers and losing them very rapidly. So let's look at it compared to some of these other shows. I know that's what we talked about at the very beginning of this video. X-User, now it's known, really did a good job putting this comparison up over on X. If you want to click on that to look at more of that, you can. I will have that link in the description below, the link to the article in the description below, as I always do. But he points out that the Ahsoka finale, when it released back in October 2023, actually hit 575 million minutes watched. Acolyte's finale, obviously 41% less than Ahsoka. I mean, this is absolutely atrocious. Andor finale brought in 674 million minutes watched. That is over, the Acolyte's viewership is over 50% less than Andor's. It gets even worse when you look at Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Book of Boba Fett. Obi-Wan Kenobi had 860 million minutes watched. The Acolyte, over 60% less than Obi-Wan Kenobi. Book of Boba Fett, 885 million minutes watched. We're looking at a 62% decline. And then The Mandalorian Season 3 had 1.012 billion minutes watched, and The Acolyte performed 66% worse than that season. Absolutely terrible performance. It shows a decline of Star Wars in general on Disney Plus. Remember, Disney Plus subscriptions, people actually paying to get Disney Plus, has gone up. If you look at Disney's quarterly reports, they're reporting there are more people subscribed to the streaming service than ever, but we're seeing a decline in viewership for their Star Wars shows every time they release one. So they are literally killing the brand, killing the franchise with every single show that they release, and there does not appear to be any kind of course correction happening whatsoever. I cannot understand why investors are not up in arms about this and actually asking questions about why Disney is literally killing Star Wars, because that is what they are doing. They are doing this consciously. They are actively killing Star Wars. This is not a mistake that they're doing. People like myself have been talking about this for over a decade now, and they are not course correcting whatsoever. Maybe not a decade, maybe close to a decade. We were talking about 2015, 2016, 2017, when we saw The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi come out. But they continue to double down on this awful, awful storytelling, movies, and television shows that they are releasing. So also, now it's known, points out that these piss poor viewership numbers explain why showrunner Leslye Headland was begging people to watch the show and take part in social media campaigns in an attempt to get a second season greenlit. He wrote this: The Acolyte's episode 8 finale makes the charts and also explains why its showrunner resorted to begging. Accurate description there. And Leslye Headland did indeed beg. I mean, she was asked by Collider this. Shifting gears, one of the most popular questions that I got to ask you from Twitter was, what do fans need to do to ensure that we got a season 2? I think this is Maggie Lovett at Collider. And Headland responded saying this: truly, any online support and love you can send the show. It's a little tricky because of the way that the internet works, but if you enjoyed the show and you want to see more of the story, any support that you can give the show on social media platforms would be super helpful. So she's clearly begging people to try and be positive about the show because she knew that the viewership was absolutely abysmal. Nevertheless, Headland continued saying, sending love to the cast too. You've seen what Hayden Christensen went through. He's getting the love now, but give the love now if you enjoyed the performances. Even if you were kind of like whatever on the show, if you enjoyed the performances, get on their social media, let them know that you love them or that you support them or that the performances were great. From there, she said, encourage your friends to watch the show. A lot of my work has been word of mouth. We were talking about the review bombing. So just telling people don't pay attention to the IMDb score. I mean, just absolute 100% cope, claiming that it was review bombing. No one was review bombing the show. They were actively saying how bad it was and being honest about it. And Leslye Headland trying to gaslight people, claiming that they were review bombing when that is indeed not what happened. People were just sharing their honest opinions about how absolutely atrocious this show was. And the viewership numbers declining reflect that. People did not like this show. Nevertheless, she then said this: if you enjoyed it, tell people. It kind of seems that it's sort of basic, but I think what's interesting is that nowadays, if you like a show, you're very rarely going to go online and be like, I like this show. That's absolutely ridiculous. People say they like shows all the time online and spread the word. Just 100% complete cope. Lovett then said this: you just watch it and move on. Headland reiterated, you watch it, you move on. Maybe you mention it to somebody over dinner and be like, oh, I just binged this show. It was fun. Lee Jung-jae is an awesome actor. It usually comes up that way, as opposed to going online and saying, I love this show. So if you did love the show, then pivot and be appreciative. This is just absolutely 100% cope. People literally do go online, say that they love the show. They spread it in their groups that they're in, their Facebook groups, their subreddits, on YouTube, etc., where they have these fandoms that they're in. They do indeed share that they love the show and they talk about it. If they actually did love the show and the show was actually good, which is not. And that's why no one is actually saying that they love this show. And that's why Leslye Headland is begging and gaslighting people about it. By the way, I know this is already happening, even though I'm not online. People have been sending me fun tweets and beautiful artwork and all of the ship comments, and I'm absolutely loving it. I know it's out there, but if you aren't doing it, I would encourage you to do it and support the show. So thank you. So that's literally what she's trying to do. My show has great ships. You should support it. It's like your show is absolutely awful and you are part of killing Star Wars and Lucasfilm. In an interview with Nerdist, she indicated the show had not received a season 2 green light. She was asked, do you know if you're definitely getting a season 2? And she said, no, I have no idea. Well, not that I have no idea. I would say there are conversations and I don't know when that will happen. I don't know when that decision will be made. It will likely be made the same time that Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm make a decision on Rian Johnson's trilogy that literally has not moved anywhere since it was announced back in 2017, almost a decade ago. She also informed Entertainment Weekly at the end of June that she did not know if a second season would be greenlit. She said, "I'll tell you my philosophy on first season. Something that I've noticed is first seasons will end on what should have been the break into Act 2. It feels like everyone's really expecting to get a second season, and I don't feel that's a good idea. I think you should put everything you can into the first season and give the audience a nice resolution that feels satisfying." She does not do that in the show, but enough nods to mysteries that you would want to see a second season. It was all about the key jangling and the cameos in order to try and justify a second season. That's exactly what she did. So it's a little bit of both. You don't want to leave it so wrapped up that like Obi-Wan or a standalone miniseries that there's no reason to watch a second season. But I think there's enough stuff in the last few episodes that you would want to have answered. There's absolutely not. And that's why people abandoned the show en masse. So a rumor from WDW Pro also indicated that Lucasfilm has no plans to develop a second season of the show. He said this, "What I am told by a source who has been correct in the past regarding Lucasfilm with very high specificity of correctness, aka go back, folks, and listen to us tell you that the Rey movie was going to be happening right before they announced it and that Daisy Ridley would walk across the stage of the Star Wars Celebration right before it happened. Said source tells me that Leslye Headland does not, as of right now, have a contract for a season 2 of The Acolyte. Said source tells me that following the finale of season 1 and the results that may have been coming in weeks ahead, this decision may have been coming in weeks ahead of the finale. There are no current plans to develop a season 2. He does say that could change. Kathleen Kennedy can always make that decision as long as she has a contract, which we believe she has a contract up until October of this year. And it may be continued past that, but that's when the current contract would end. But Kathleen Kennedy could go ahead and approve that. But as of right now, we are told there are no plans, no movements. There is nothing in development for a season 2 of The Acolyte. My source tells me that everything in season 1 indicates that they did plan on doing a season 2, especially with the way the show ends. But as of right now, that continuation of the story seems to be on indefinite hold, indefinite pause. And I think these viewership numbers explain that. Maybe, just maybe, Lucasfilm is starting to wake up that they are killing the franchise and they need to do something to stop the bleeding. But I doubt that. I haven't really seen any movement on that. They continue to double down on just killing the franchise, ruining Star Wars, and embracing people like Leslye Headland, who are all about just doing ships and all kinds of absolute nonsense that has cropped up in recent years surrounding films and television. But let me know what you guys make of these viewership numbers for The Acolyte here, how bad they really are. Are you surprised about how bad they are? Did you think they would be lower? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth.